start trying to put a spin on it because I know exactly. Because I've been. You're not liking what I'm saying.
No, I'm not honest.
Well, you can be honest. We're being open here, okay? You don't like what I'm saying.
No, it's not right.
What?
Hello, it's December 2024. Now this video is inspired by some conversations that I've had with different people. And although the conversations are along the same topic, they're, as a descriptive, polar opposites. They really contrast each other. Now, before I get into this video any further, I just want to say that this video may be a sensitive topic for some people. Dare I use the word, and I hate using the word, triggering. So I'm just going to give you a heads up here. I want to be talking about this topic first from my own personal first-hand life experiences, and then I'm going to segue into more of a social perspective. And what I'm going to be talking about mostly has to do with, and I'm trying to wordcraft here, content that deals with sex. I hope that doesn't trigger anything, but anyway. Now, I'm going to start off with my own personal experiences in life. And it actually sets the stage for what I'm going to get into later on in this video, so you understand where I'm coming from. Now, I've mentioned, for example, I don't know to what extent over the years, in my childhood, prepubescent years, how I was passed around, we'll say, among adults. Mostly women, and at that age you obviously don't understand what this type of behavior is really all about. You may be drawn to it. Some in their lives have that draw to that much sooner than others, we'll say. But you have no concept of what's really going on. This is really not my focus here. Now, there's been some, looking at it from my perspective now, some experiences that weren't harmful as a descriptive, but there were some that were very unpleasant. I'll just leave it at that. But again, this is not where I really want to focus. I want to kind of fast forward just a little bit here. So even since my childhood, those years and growing up, I've always been attracted to older women. And this continued on, for example, into my teens, even in my early teens, always attracted to older women. Perhaps because of the experiences that I had when I was young with older women, set that stage for me, kind of created that, the word just popped out of my head here. I'll mention it when it comes back to me. But I have that attraction to older women. And this has been studied throughout my whole life, perhaps even to this day. I'll get into that towards the end. So by the time I hit my, say, early teens, I've always been attracted to older women. And I know, as a young adult teenager, and there's a difference here between being a prepubescent child, which connects to something called, I'll just write it on the screen here, and then as a young adult teenager, and I'll just write that on the screen here. There's a huge difference between the two. But I remember, even as a young adult teenager, in my early years of that, being very craftful and skillful at manipulating older people, tapping into their weaknesses, I guess. And you're not thinking about it that way. You're not even seeing it that way. Looking back from my perspective now, yeah, I knew exactly what I was doing when it came to older women. By the time I hit my mid-teens, I had moved out when I was 17, just turned 17. I talk about my being trafficked, mostly women, much older women. I would say, I'm just trying to think of some ages here, all the way up to in the 60s. And being able to play on the fact that, for example, making them feel youthful, making them feel important in these things. As a young adult teenager, I knew exactly what I was doing and how I was manipulating them. Now, whether it be by my choice or not, that's the true reality. And this is something that people, whether they be men or women, never talk about, especially in today's world, because it's all about victimization and, you know, how they were taken advantage of. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, and I'm not saying that never happened to me. I'm just looking at it through the lens, my personal eyes of living through all that myself, and even talking to other people throughout my whole life. When guards are down, everyone I've talked to admits the same type of thing. You learn how to manipulate older people. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just simply stating it, that's a reality. Do older people manipulate younger people? Sure. But regardless of age or age differences or anything else, there's always going to be someone who has that edge, that control. And younger people have that edge and control over someone older because, again, you're playing on, for example, an older woman's desire to feel youthful, to feel desired, to feel whatever it is that they're missing in life. Perhaps something that they're not getting in their relationship, and you, in a sense, exploit that as a young adult teenager. And this is something that even people who've never experienced these things in their lives, say as they're listening in as a third party to all this, cannot wrap their head around it. Because in today's world, especially in the Western culture specifically, everyone's been so socially conditioned that young people are victims, period. And there's no way around it. Now, I'm just going to kind of stop here for a moment, but continue on what I'm talking about here. What usually happens with older people and, say, younger people is they go through a phase in their life. Sometimes, more times than not, it's just kind of like a one-off thing. They have that moment of weakness and boom. Now, the issue is, if they get caught, then they're pegged for the rest of their life that this is who they are, which is not the case. Again, most times it's just a phase or a one-off situation. And I'm just going to highlight something here, even from a personal as well as a professional perspective, that is far more common for women to engage with this, and specifically this, because that's just the way it is. It's not a theory, opinion, want, or anything that I'm sharing here. It's a fact. But due to feminism, the focus is always on the males, vilifying males, and that's a whole different tangent. Now, with this set, with my experiences with older women throughout my whole life and my attraction to older women, and I say to, perhaps even to this day, I haven't been in a relationship or with a woman since the woman I married and everything that had transpired in 1999. It's been that long. I went from one extreme in life to living celibate, I guess you could say. I've messed around a handful of times since. Nothing really serious, but you know, that's a different topic in itself. So all my life, older women, because more than likely because the experiences that I had when I was younger was always with someone older, much older, and that just became, as a descriptive, my thing, I guess. Now, where the inspiration of this video comes into play here is talking to two different people, specifically, and there's other conversations with other people, but I just want to kind of focus on this as the baseline here. There's one person who personally knows someone who, unfortunately for them and everyone involved, they got dinged for engaging with a young adult teenager. I would like to do a quick update to this story. It does appear that this story is based on a false allegation of revenge. And it's really interesting to hear the backlash even from the community and family, and how this person, who's a male, should burn in hell for eternity and everything else, as if this was the most horrific crime ever committed. And I'm not stating or implying for or against this. I want to stop here for a moment. The biggest fundamental issue between age differences is there's no common ground. There's nothing to talk about. So there might be some subtle things, I guess, some small little meaningless things, but really, when you look at it, it's really fulfilling a need, perhaps, because in today's world, sex is not about procreation, it's about recreation, and this is one of the biggest contributors to the fall of the civilization. But anyway, that's a different topic. So this individual is going through their personal hell, and the family and everyone else. And I try to explain to this person, trying to offer some comfort, that there's a difference between the two, and how people misuse the one word so much. Now, another conversation that I had with someone who is from a different culture, different country, how they talk about knowing their great-grandparents are still alive. And I remember during this conversation thinking, how's that even possible? And as I was about to say, well, they must have got married at a young age, they said, well, yeah, in their culture, they get married at 13, 14 years old. They have families, they have jobs, and they're adults. And this is in today's world, right now as we speak. Now, people in the West might think, well, yeah, that's wrong, that's wrong. Is it wrong? Because when you look at their culture is as a descriptive thriving and everything else. But anyway, and the conversation was really about the great-grandparents, and then it's kind of like, how do you know them? And this is how so you see the difference between these two conversations. And as I said, there's other conversations that I've had with others kind of around all this, but just use these two as a baseline, and in the contrast, the differences on the same topic. Because when you look at, for example, in the Western culture, the age of consent is based on an arbitrary number. And really it all began with about a case, I think it was in New York, if I'm not mistaken, 100 years ago. A young adult teenager committed a crime, a serious crime. The defense argued that they're just a child. The courts said yeah, and the person got off. And then that whole narrative just kind of seeped into the commoner's mindset that, yep, teenagers are children. And if you think about it, the human brain doesn't stop developing until the late 20s. And in some cases, the human brain never stops developing. And then when you see social engineering, social conditioning, how people raise children, they don't raise adults, then, you know, everything just gets really like a big tangled web of nonsense. But anyway, I just found it really interesting, this contrast, and then reflecting on my youth. Maybe not so much as a child, a real child, prepubescent child, but more in my teens. And you're very much aware. And there's even stories about how young adult teenagers plan crimes, whether it be robbery or whatever, and go through with them and get caught and everything else. But we're starting to see a shift now with the legal process, where the courts are seeing young adult teenagers as adults, because the courts are saying, well, they're very much aware of what they're doing, what they're planning. They may not have the life experience to make an informed conclusion or decision about their actions or anything else, but that same thing applies to most people who we deem as adults in today's world, because most people lack critical thinking skills, an extensive knowledge base. You cannot separate their emotions when making conclusions, and this applies to any age group. Just something to think about. So this video is really just talking about my first-hand experience from being a real child, prepubescent child, on the topic of sex, to my adult, young adult teen years, and onward. Now, I was going to finish off with some personal, sharing some personal things here. Although I was very much attracted throughout my whole life to women, much older women, the irony is how many, 2 or 3 girlfriends that I had, well, actually 2 girlfriends that I had were in my age bracket, and the woman that I married was in my age bracket. I had one girlfriend who was way much older. I was a teenager, and they were in their mid to late 20s. Anyway, I just thought I'd share this, give some insight to young adult teenagers being very much aware on how they manipulate older people and how cultures vary. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
I didn't say you had to. I'm just saying.
Okay, so we're not talking about...
Let's see what other photos I can come up with.
Yeah, was it the other day?
I have a hoodie on. Can I take off my jacket?
Yes, you're covered pretty good. Thank you. You got a bra, that's good. Everything's good. Safe.
Fucking shit. Fuck off.
No. Izzy. Okay, stop here. Stop at his ears. Now I have to get, what I have to do now is I have to get one of these Kleenexes. Thank you. Yeah. Turn that on when I'm dying. Okay.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.